Hi guys, welcome to @AMP Prime. Today I'll be talking about James Gunn that needs to avoid these 5 SnyderVerse mistakes in the new DCU. So before starting the video, I have a small request. Please subscribe to my channel, like and share it with your friends and families. Okay, now let's get into the video. So with James Gunn's DC reboot looming, there are some key mistakes from the SnyderVerse that the superpowered universe should avoid going forward. Coming off a lackluster last decade and change for the DCEU, Gunn and his DC Studio co-CEO Peter Safran will look to distance the series from the Zack Snyder-led era with a full-scale reimagining of the Blue Band on-screen effort. The first wave of DCU projects will sit under the banner Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, kicking off, at least on the big screen, with 2025's Superman Legacy. So with the Gunn Safran era getting set to begin and Snyder era set to end, here is every mistake from the DCEU that Gunn DC reboot should avoid. Number 1. Introducing too much too fast. One of the biggest problems with the SnyderVerse was the speed at which the storytelling came. After Man of Steel laid the basic groundwork for the DCEU, Warner Bros. Raced to catch up to the MCU. This led to a branch of world building that felt like drinking out of a fire hose. At times, the focus was no longer on setting the stage for the story, but rather on getting to that story being a Justice League team-up as fast as possible. The best thing James Gunn DC reboot can do is take its time, slowly laying the seeds for the greater world with no rush to get some epic team-up. Major successes on the other side of the comic book fence in the MCU have worked because Marvel Studio President Kevin Feige and co. carefully laid the cobblestone in front of them before trying to drive on the road they were building. The reason Avengers Endgame was such a massive hit was because of the more than a decade of connective tissue the franchisee had built. While the fan want to see a major DC events like Crisis on Infinite Earths on the big screen eventually, there is no need to rush to get to those moments. Instead, the best thing James Gunn and Peter Safran can do is make sure they have a good, strong foundation before anything else. Number 2, not having a concrete plan. Coming hand in hand with too much too fast. Point is having a concrete plan for the DCU. While Snyderverse era may have a plan under the tutelage of the director Zack Snyder at one point or the another, that was quickly abandoned by the higher-ups at Warner Bros. The studio opted to build on the fly following the Justice League debacle that saw Snyder leaving the project mid-shoot. Already it seems like James Gunn has a concrete plan of where he wants to take the DCU. The DC head honcho has been clear, and a few others will serve as a timeline keepers for this purpose. However, it will be the job of Warner Bros. To let Gunn and Safran execute this vision and see it through. Currently, the DCU slate includes 10 total projects, with talk of even more being added as the time goes on. Yes, there has been plenty of examples of massive slate being announced only to never see the light of the day. Just look at the original DCEU slate announcement. But Gunn seems committed to not only announcing things unless he feels confident that they will happen. Number 3, avoiding the weirdness of DC. Something that DCEU only dabbled in films like Aquaman and Shazam, but never fully embraced is the absolute bonkers nature of some of the DC universe. Arguably, even more than the world of Marvel Comics, DC can get weird, and its on screen universe should get into that. Gunn's reimagined DC would, should broaden those horizons beyond just the traditional Justice League headliners and dive into the cosmic, mythological, and mystical scenarios. This apprehension towards embracing the weird is something that Gunn already seemed primed to get over. His first set of DC projects include stories at street level with the brave and the bold, and those of the intergalactic with lanterns. And for those that are still skeptical, Gunn already announced the franchise's first dip into the dark world of DC occult with James Mangold Swamp Thing as well. Number 4. Holding back directors. One of the biggest complaints fans have had with the Snyderverse of Warner Brothers WB is holding back or impeding the visions of the director. Even though the mileage may have varied when it comes to the quality of some of those visions, in several cases WB stepped in mid-production and Frankensteining films into something they were never meant to be. Titles like Justice League, Suicide Squad, The Flash, Aquaman 2, which is still set to release, all suffered from studio meddling during the production or in some cases post-production process. What Gunn needs to do with his renewed vision for the franchisee is advised as best he can. Set the teams up for the success and let them craft the vision with the confines of the great universe. Without creative freedom like this, the world would have never gotten certified classic of the genres like The Dark Knight or Guardians of the Galaxy, which funnily enough was directed by none other than James Gunn. This likely will not be as much of an issue for Gunn as he has been on the other side working with the confines of IP with major studios before and knows how it can feel to have a creative vision meddled with. Number 5. Not focusing on standalone stories. In concert with every one of the points above is focusing on good standalone stories first and foremost. This is one of the most prevalent mistakes of not just the Snyderverse era, DCEU, but modern comic book movie making as a whole. Instead of crafting excellent superhero stories that stand on their own, with just seeds of world building, comic books, movies, in some cases become overstuffed commercial for what is next that particular universe rather than making what is happening now feel meaningful. That is not to say there should be no mentioning of a greater universe. It is that interconnection narrative that makes this cinematic universe special. But the greater universe should not be justification for mediocre stories being told just because it will all supposedly pay off in some event movie down the line. Thus far, Gunn looks to have this covered. All the comic book inspirations Gunn has revealed for his DC plans operate as solid standalone stories that also happen to take place in the greater DC universe. Part of the reason Snyderverse films like Shazam, Wonder Woman and Man of Steel succeeded is that they are the first and foremost solid stories on their own. So these were the standalone movies, which were really good. So DCEU should have focused on these movies, all the standalone movies before getting to the Justice League and not rushing up. Where some of the other DCU films failed was prioritizing universe building rather than making a great satisfying narrative and present, and the Gunn Safran DC reboot would be smart to avoid this tactic. James Gunn DC reboot kicks off on the big screen with Superman Legacy on July 11th, 2025. That's it, guys. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. So please to share, subscribe and like my videos. This is @AMP Pine signing off. Thank you. Bye.